Hello, everybody. It's Erin Mack, the BS detector, and I'm back again to read to you. Wet my whistle a little bit here, so my lips aren't so dry. How's everyone doing? How's everyone's weekend? Mine was long as usual because that's what I do on the weekends is work. You know, you got to get it while the getting's good, I guess. But I just want to say right now that I am not suicidal. Okay. I have absolutely no intentions to harm myself or anyone else. All right. And I'm saying that because I had a friend who's not, like, I don't even think he's like a believer or anything. He's real into like astrology and, really firmly believes in academia. Like, I think he's going for his master's or PhD at this point right now. Like, he's one of those, like my Uncle Scott, our perpetual student. And this friend, love him to death. Um, but I've talked about my phone being like so full from me not deleting the trash folder that like I had to offload all the apps pretty much. So Facebook Messenger was offloaded for a little bit. And then once I, re-uploaded it, I had like all these messages, right? So I'm going through and I'm reading. And the message from him was like trying to warn me that I probably shouldn't be talking about Yahweh and I shouldn't be trying to wake people up that like he's not the most high God and like Jesus has all authority. Like, it was bizarre. It was very bizarre. And then a friend at work was like, Erin, you better be careful, like, doing this could put you in danger. And I understand that. But at the same time, it's not like any of my videos are going viral. Okay. It's not like I've got 27 subscribers right now. I think it's fine. However, I had to put my car in the shop just for some regular maintenance stuff. And I rented a car. And I opted to not get the extra insurance because I'm like, dude, like I have full coverage insurance on my regular car. Why would I pay for extra insurance? If something happens, it's not going to be my fault. You know what I mean? So I was driving that rental last week to work. When I picked it up, I was in a very big hurry and I did not notice the windshield being cracked like at all, right? I drive to work. I drive home. This was Thursday night. Friday, on my way into work, I noticed, I think it was Friday, that there was like maybe a little starburst, like right in the middle of the windshield. And then that was it, right? Okay. And I did on Friday have some, not like rude words or anything, but this lady, I had been driving around the parking lot behind my job, which is like a public parking lot for the town square. Okay. And so I've been driving around looking for a parking spot and I pull up and I find one, but it's right by the entrance. So this woman whips it in and she's blocking the spot. And she's acting like she's going to pull into the spot. And I'm sitting there going, no, because I would have to move for her to be able to fit in because it's a very small parking lot. It's not very big. So somebody's going to have to move out of the way. And it's not going to be me because I've got to be at work in like 10 minutes and you are impeding me from parking at this point. So I roll my window down. She rolls hers down as I'm like, I'm about to pull into that spot when you pulled in. And she's like, oh, and gave me this attitude. And I'm like, girl, bye. So then I was like, okay, maybe did she get mad and like do something to the windshield of this car. Then I returned the rental. And my ex, who I live with in the basement down here, okay, everybody else lives upstairs. It's like a little kind of in-law suite. I have my own little mini kitchen, my own bathroom, all that stuff, right? Okay. He and his father, like, he comes in and he's like, did somebody hit your car? And I was like, what do you mean? And apparently someone hit the back passenger side of my car. Now, the thing about the model of my car, it's like a Mario Kart car, okay? Totally like fiberglass made out of plastic. Like, someone literally rear-ended me. It totaled their car and it like slashed my bumper, and I just had to get a new bumper. I mean, they obviously had to pay for it because they rear-ended me, but this little car, it's like indestructible. So all it did was like kind of just put some paint scratches that I was able to like, get off with my finger. But at this point, I'm like, who could it be? Now, I have an idea of there's one person that, I feel like has probably been targeting me for a few years now because, at my old bar that I used to work at, I had the same car as one of my coworkers, and someone put like water or sugar in their gas tank, and they were like the nicest person. Not saying that I'm not a nice person, but being somebody that's considered a truther and having the knowledge, and some would say beliefs. I don't think they're beliefs because once you find out, like facts are facts, like the first book that we read, once you find out about certain realities, you really upset people when you share that kind of stuff. And then, at the time I had this psychotic ex that like really was like hell-bent on destroying my life, to the point where I literally had to run for my life because I felt like if I did not leave, they were going to try to find a reason to shoot me, and it'd be like self-defense or whatever, because they tried to have me arrested at one point, and that ended up getting dropped. But, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if I'm being targeted because I'm disseminating this information, or I don't know if it's just because I've got regular haters. I don't know. So I just wanted to share that with everyone. I'm not in any way sad or depressed. I was an extreme drug addict, okay, an extreme heroin addict, in fact, decades ago. I am not now. I have absolutely no desire to do that anymore, and I wouldn't even honestly know where to find any at this point because my guy died like 4 years ago. So I'm just putting that out there because this Joe Kells guy or whatever that was like literally buying all the old books and making a website about, like, uploading them for free for everyone, has just mysteriously died. And what is it that I'm doing? I'm not like uploading these things, but I'm reading them to you guys. So I realize I'm putting myself in a kind of dangerous situation, but I don't give a shit. I'm tired of everyone being brainwashed, and I need for everyone to wake up, okay? We are all in grave danger. All of us, especially in America and in all the Western countries. Like, it's out of control. All of our wealth has been drained, okay? We've got Schmionists that believe that we are supposed to worship them, okay? And that's just not going to happen. Never. Never will I ever. So this is a Schmionist organization, okay? And they've been behind a lot of psyops, which we have learned in this reading. So, anyways, I hope that I didn't bore you too much and that you haven't logged off. All right, so now we are in the section, we're still in the television chapter, And we are at the subheader of idiot speak, which is, I think, another term from the book 1984. Okay. Have you ever paid attention to the level of language used in newscasts? You haven't, have you? In fact, every newscast in the Western world follows the same language pattern: simple verbs, oodles of nouns, and few long sentences. Short sentences, simple vocabulary. I don't know what is wrong, but I feel like I got sand in my eyes. Okay, anyways, in other words, sound bites. Quote, President won't run for re-election, end quote, says the newsreader. Quote, details in half an hour, end quote. This, too, is deliberate. Through language, its beauty and complexity, quote, man communicate... Oh, wait, hold on. Yeah, okay. Yeah, okay. Through language as beauty and complexity, quote, man communicates the ideas and principles of his culture from one generation to the next, end quote. The language of television is Aristotelian. Aristotelian. What a weird word. I mean, I know Aristotle. Aristotelian. Didn't know that was a word. I guess it is now. Through the mere naming of objects in a fixed counted universe: man, dog, criminal, president, car, bomb, economy, bad, good. Quote, there is no creative thought going on, no attempt to engage the mind, merely to imprint an image in a person's brain, end quote. And that's what you call brainwashing. However, brainwashing by television is not an overnight thing. Rather, it is a cumulative effect over a long period of time that succeeds in changing the paradigm of our society. Don't believe me? Look around and think back a generation. The language of television news has its roots in linguistic work during World War II as part of H.G. Wells' Ultimate Revolution, the elimination of all languages in favor of, quote, basic English. Future world language, which had a vocabulary of only 850 words. Whoa. This degenerate concept was created by a British linguist, C.K. Ogden. Some people in the highest levels of the British oligarchy, including Churchill, saw the potential brainwashing value in what Ogden had done. By using basic coupled with the mass media, a large number of people could be given a simple message without complicated thoughts getting in the way. In Wells' future world, quote, the English most speak and write today is very different from the English of Shakespeare, Addison, Bunyan, or Shaw. It has shed the last traces of such archaic elaborations as the subjunctive mood, end quote. However, human powers of hypothesis and creative reason become a force for improvements in the order of nature and thus cannot be encased into an 850-word vocabulary. Through languages, nation-states were given meaning, and through them our quest for truth. In ancient Greece, in Plato's Meno dialogue, quote, Socrates brings out the innate genius in the slave boy by encouraging him to solve the problem of doubling the square. He thus proves that slavery is unjust by showing the creative nature of the human species. Plato's pro-imperial opponent, Aristotle, assuming that man has no soul, declared that nature has destined some to be slaves and has made others their masters, end quote. Tavistock knows that ideas are more powerful than any standing army. To get people to accept their imperial ideas, Tavistock seeks to control the way people think, especially science, the area where human powers of hypothesis and creative reason become a force for improvements in the order of nature. If you can control how we think, you control how we respond to events around us, no matter what these events might be. This process is called paradigm shift, an overturning of existing sets of assumptions about society. Historically, the fight to preserve language as the cornerstone of nation-state republics goes back to Italian playwright Dante Alighieri. As sociologist Dennis Speed writes on the pages of Fidelio magazine, quote, it is important to identify the fact that people of the Italian Renaissance spoke a language that did not exist 200 years earlier, but was invented by the poet Dante Alighieri. Dante, who lived from 1250 to the early 1300s, struggled to invent a language that can resurrect the most profound ideas of human thought, even if his own era should ultimately commit suicide. This suicide, in fact, did occur through the banking collapse caused by the Bardi and Peruzzi families. Quote, Without Dante's gift of the Italian language, which was shaped by him from over 1,000 local dialects, there could not have occurred the Renaissance. Dante's Divine Comedy refined the canto form of sung poetry. His followers, Francesco Petrarca, sought to advance language further with the invention of the sonetto or sonnet. But Petrarca's friend Giovanni Boccaccione was assigned by Petrarca to a different project called the Decameron. The Decameron was written in order to prevent the whole of Italian society from sinking into cultural pessimism and dying out during the Black Death of the 1340s and later. It consists of satirical stories, many quite risque, which recount the tragedy of Europe's suicide in a way designed to make people laugh at themselves and repeat the stories, and hopefully not the behavior which had destroyed them. Thus they would learn Dante's Italian. Quote, Geoffrey Chaucer attended a lecture by Boccaccio on Dante in 1375 and got the idea to do the same thing in English. Thus was born the Canterbury Tales, which recount the hilarious tales told on a religious pilgrimage to the Church of Canterbury. The English, being every bit as licentious as the Italians, also repeated the stories and thus learned how to speak English. Later, Shakespeare imported the sonnet of Petrarca into English. Your literate English is in large measure Italian, a sort of grandson of Dante's Italian. Later, the Christian humanist figure Erasmus of Rotterdam inspired his student Francois Rabelais to do for France what was done by Boccaccio for Italy and Chaucer for English. Thus was born the astounding character Gargantua, and with it the French language. And in Spanish we have the great example of Don Quixote. End quote. In this way, languages created by poets lifted the populations that had been dominated by ignorance and thereby ruled over. In fact, languages created the nations, not the other way around. And now we have a big subheader called War Across Generational Divide. And that's another divide and conquer tactic that they're using against us, okay? So it's not just propaganda, it's literally the dividing of the races, the sexes, the generations. They're literally trying to divide us into as many subgroups as they can because divide and conquer is the strategy ultimately. All right. So, war across generational divide. People in their 60s are called the baby boom generation. The values common to the baby boomer generation are synonymous with the paradigm shift in society beginning with the 1960s. That policy change is deindustrialization of America. Deindustrialization society is a no future society because any self-respecting nation state can only truly be independent if it can provide welfare for its citizens. And non-citizens, apparently, because I think most of the welfare now is going to illegals. How were the people who run the world able to impose this deindustrialization on society? Think about the profile of the American population. The generation with the strongest set of moral values in American history is the generation that fought in World War II. They were born before the advent of television. They were the hardest generation to brainwash. Their children, the baby boomers, became the targets of the brainwashers. In fact, with the advent of television, the baby boomers have spent their entire lives being brainwashed. That's facts. Think back to the goal of brainwashers, to make each succeeding generation more infantile, more animal-like, more amoral, thus easier to control. The world we are a part of today is more conventional, less concerned, more sensationalist, and more spiteful. Most certainly fucking spiteful. The impetus of modern thought has been towards reducing the sphere of individual moral responsibility. Human behavior is seen increasingly as the product of impersonal forces. And how could it be different? Our parents were brought up on a, quote, healthy dose of television diet. We were also reared by television. Our children are educated through mainstream TV. In other words, 3 successive generations subjected to television brainwashing have no conscious memory of anything different. Think about it. People have never quite digested television. The mystique, which should grow stale, grows stronger. Our moral compass has shifted to such an extent that we make celebrities not only of the men who cause the events, but of the men who act them out on the screen, who lip sync old songs for hand-picked studio audiences, and of those out-of-work actors who sell cheap trinkets, yogurts, and deodorants during commercial breaks of old film reruns. And once our moral compass shifted, something happened to us and with us. The TV set became the moralizer. It began telling people what to do. Suddenly, the behavior of children, the drugs, the sex, the antisocial behavior doesn't seem as shocking as it once did. It became easier to rationalize it, to explain it away with the help of the messages contained in television programming. Quote, and when the adults are infantile ready, it's more easy to accept the infantilism in their children, end quote. Cultural warfare. Now, let's have a look at the people who create the idea content of the brainwashing. Most of them are in the approximately 35 to 45-year-old range. In other words, the programmers themselves were weaned on television since birth. So don't look for a scenario where three 90-year-old geezers sit in a dark room holding hands, staring at a crystal ball, planning the world's future. It doesn't work that way. Actually, I'm pretty sure it fucking does, but what do I know? It's more like a group of infantile jerks in sneakers and goofy haircuts sitting around in an air-conditioned room overlooking the Big Apple, kicking around ideas for next year's major shows. Once they come up with the ideas, they pass it to another group of infantile jerks called scriptwriters who will put these ideas into simple dialogues full of nouns and simple verbs. And all of these people, these writers, are Zionist Jays, okay? Like, it's a big club and ain't none of us in it. Start noticing the last names of the writers of TV shows, of the directors, of even the people like that, cast stuff. Like, literally everyone. It is a giant nepotistic, schmionist circle jerk of brainwashers, because what person in their right mind would do this to their fellow countrymen? Only a soulless person would do this. And it's the irony of these schmionists to dare to call us goy soulless when they're truly the ones. The projection is off the charts, okay? It's off the damn charts. Okay. That product will then be placed in the hands of producers and directors for actual production. This is done the world over, from the United States to Canada and Western Europe. Why only all the white countries? Why is that? This is, okay, even 1,000-year-old or Oriental cultures such as the Japanese have their own versions of all major and minor U.S. hit situation comedies adapted to their own market. And the Japanese is another monoculture that they're trying to subvert. When a country is a majority of one ethnicity, it is very difficult to conquer it. But then you fill it full of other random people from random places who don't give a shit about the culture or the history of the country or anything of the sort. And then on top of that, are brainwashed to believe that said civilization is the bad guy in every historical account for the past 200 years. Then we have a problem. And I think we're there. Once the shows are designed and the scripts written, the actual brainwashing messages are inserted after the fact. The jerky screenwriters and brainstormers rely on experts from Tavistock and Frankfurt School who work as advisors on most programs. For example, quote, there can be no discussion of homos without first deferring to the Gay Rights Task Force, end quote, who make sure that the issue is being dealt with sensitively. Similarly, all children's shows, and that includes all Disney programming, employ child psychiatrists to help shape content. And also, there is so much sexual, subliminal messaging in Disney stuff, and people think, oh, that's just the modern Disney stuff. No. It goes back to the very beginning of Disney, okay? They've been subliminally brainwashing the kids for 100 years, probably. I mean, isn't that how old Disney is? 100 years old? Didn't they just celebrate 100 years or something like that? Anyways, all right. So, furthermore, the entire environmental idiocy is scripted into television shows, films, and into the news. Take, for example, a 2008 Hollywood science fiction thriller, The Happening, starring Mark Wahlberg, that, quote, follows a man, his wife, and his best friend, along with his friend's daughter, as they try to escape from an inexplicable natural disaster. The plot revolves around a mysterious neurotoxin that causes anyone exposed to it to commit suicide. End quote. The message is easily discernible. People are the enemy of nature, and planet Earth is rebelling against us, ruthlessly killing the enemy. And that is brainwashing going along with this Agenda 2030 Sustainable Development Goals, 15-minute cities, humans are a scourge on the planet, poisoning everything. No! In fact, it's the industrialists and the Rockefellers and the Ford Foundation and all of these rich people taking private jets. If it's anyone, okay, it's them, not us. They've got the EPA in charge of how much poison they're allowed to dump into the water. It should be exactly 0. But there's like minimum levels of toxins that, we're allowed to ingest, like mercury. It's nuts. It's truly nuts. And we will find that out in where is that book? Right. What Really Makes You Ill. Or what Really Makes You Ill. Like I probably read almost all of that book back just right before 2020 happened. And so, when that happened, I was like, oh, wow, they really are doing it. They're really putting a big brainwash on all the freaking people of the whole wide world. And they gaslight us to make us feel like all of this is our fault. No, do not feel bad, brother and sister. Do not feel bad, because it is not our fault. These lizard people, okay, if that's what you want to call them, satanic offspring of the giants from Genesis 6, whatever you want to call them. What's another word? Oh gosh, now I can't think. What are they called? I almost had the word on the tip of my tongue. And the archons, okay? Whatever you want to call them, they're the ones doing all this evil shit, and then they're like gaslighting the F out of us to make us feel bad for using a plastic bag when they should have never have invented a plastic in the first place, because all of us are full of it, even our brains. Literally, the human body, I just saw this the other day. The human body on average, I think, has like, I don't remember how many pounds of plastic in us, but it's like getting to a point where it's so nanoized that it's literally in our brain. In men, it's in your balls. Like, it's literally everywhere in our blood and everything, okay? So if it's not one thing, it's another, and they're trying to unalive us. Yes, they are. And I don't know if you ever remember the Georgia Guidestones, but me being from Georgia, I do remember them, and I remember that they coincidentally came down right during 2020. How odd, because one of their mission statements was to get the population of the world down to 500 million. That means they got to unalive like 95% of us, bro. So what do you think that mRNA clot shot was? It is a eugenics program. Yes, it is. And if you don't know the meanings of these words, go look them up, okay? All right. Those who protest and are opposed to such idiocy are shunned and scorned by their coworkers, friends, and family. If you weren't completely won over, you became tolerant, or at the very least, you kept your mouth shut as the lonely voice of reason. Isn't that right? Yeah, except for I haven't kept my mouth shut. It has cost me jobs, respect, and I feel like I have made myself a target as like the crazy person when I'm literally the only sane person. Nobody has a desire. No, everyone's like natural sense of curiosity to want to know what's going on. It's like everyone's just so exhausted by life and beat down by the goings on that their curiosity has been squelched, and now nobody even reads books anymore. And then we have people like Amazon buying up all the books and destroying them, and then people like this Joe Kells guy that was like buying up a bunch of old books and publishing them for free on his website get unalived, I'm sure, by schmionists who don't want the jig or the gig to be up, right? Because if the jig is up, then everyone wakes up and fights their totalitarian plans. Okay, the New York Hollywood social community of creative people function in what brainwashers call leaderless group. Quote, they are unaware of the real outside forces that control them, especially unaware of their own brainwashing by 30 to 40 years television viewing. They believe themselves free to create, but they can lawfully only produce banalities. Ultimately, these creators of our television programming turn into their own brainwashing experience and values for their creative inspiration. When one producer is asked how he determined what was in his shows, he replied, quote, I think of myself as the audience. If it pleases me, I always think that it is going to please the audience. Indeed, it does. How many people who watch television are aware that what they see on the boob tube reflects the morals and conscience of people who make them happen? Let's have a look at the two most popular television shows in Spain to have garnered as much attention in the past decade as Operación Triunfo y Gran Hermano, which is Big Brother. Why are they so popular? One might suspect the content itself a startling new idea, but the reason might also be social acceptability, or even just plain hype. Each of these programs, with their claims of righteous generosity, even-handedness, and ratings measured fun, contains no new arguments and presents no compelling reasons why the studio audience, the show's participants, and all those simple folks watching at home shouldn't be locked up in perpetuity. Like, for real. By any standard, Operación Triunfo is an impressive achievement, a cultural prototype for the gullible and the sick. Their participants are better looking, slicker, more calculating, more diabolical, more astute in optimum crowd manipulation than their predecessors. A triumphantly bizarre television celebrity moment of puerile distortionism. Television, in fact, has given status to the celebrity which few real men attain. And what is a celebrity if not the ultimate human pseudo-event, fabricated on purpose to satisfy our exaggerated expectations of human greatness? And that's the thing, too, about even quote-unquote reality shows like Big Brother. I am sorry, you guys, my eyes, like I said, they feel like they have sand in them. I could stop and go find some eye drops, but I'm just not going to. I'm going to keep on. We're gonna keep on keeping on. Shows like Big Brother, or like even remember on MTV like Road Rules or Real World or any of that. All of those people that sign up for those shows, they're not just signing up to like win the prize money or whatever it may be. They're all aspiring actors who hope to, just by getting some screen time, even if they're not really quote acting. Even these reality shows, they're not real. They're set up with like scenarios, okay? So they're not scripted so much, but they are planned out. So, think of like somebody like Theo Vaughn, who I love and is absolutely effing hilarious, okay? He's a stand-up comic. He got his start on Road Rules, I think. And I mean, he was like on the show for several years. And then, he started his stand-up career. And I don't know if it was like Joe Rogan that noticed him or who, but anyhow, like Theo Vaughn is absolutely hilarious. But there are other people who, want to be famous for whatever reason. Like, that sounds terrible to me. And, so they go on stupid, quote unquote, reality shows like that. And people actually believe this crap is real. It's nuts. Anyways, the world we have been peering into. Okay, hold on. This is the ultimate success story of the 21st century and its pursuit of illusion. A new mold of human emptiness has been made so that marketable human models, modern heroes, could be mass produced to satisfy the market and without any hitches. Think of like even influencers now. You know what I mean? The world we have been peering into is somehow beyond good and evil. It is a world of sentimentality, of makeovers, of people who are willing to shed a tear just before a commercial break and then return with uplifting visions of a life with family by show's end. It is a world of post-baby boom, post-paradigm shift, and post-reality. It is a world of us versus them, of our parents' generation against our generation, and the divide could not have been greater than it is today. Quote, bridging the two generational value structures was the television set in your living room. And what did it tell you? To compromise, to learn to speak to each other. It provided you with solace as your world collapsed and changed, end quote. Then there is Big Brother. There are those who argue that each show is a small morality play, with the audience booing the villain and supporting the good guests. The show insists on as much. The tone, a throwback to a time-tested model of the past, is almost always conspiratorial. The nincompoops are more self-righteous, more vehement, and more paranoid. Instead of saying indefensible things and trusting that the viewer will love him anyway, they explain their hardships and plead their case, which is a very unreasonable thing to do with an abjectly stupid audience. I find it disturbing to see people allowing themselves to be used like Kleenex for shallow ends. Initial triumphalism giving way to grudgy defeatism. Is today's world as seen through the prismatic binoculars of an intrusively globalized, therapeuticized, and Coca-Cola-ized American morality? Ain't that the damn truth? Quote, attacking the entertainment of a therapeutic culture is a way of attacking its values. Publicity over achievement, revelation over restraint, honesty over decency, victimhood over personal responsibility, confrontation over civility, psychology over morality, end quote. According to a well-informed source at TVE, the more intellectual you make the shows, the more viewers yawn and go away. Makes sense probably why I only have 27 subscribers. Because most people are retards. There, I said it. Cancel me now. Don't care. They are. Most people don't have two brain cells to rub together, and they think that they are so smart, so well informed, when all they literally care about is like sports ball and stupid shit that is of zero consequence, that doesn't help anyone. It doesn't do anything. Anyways, okay. But then we already know that. And why should we be surprised? In this society, shame is fame and sin is an instrument of upward mobility. And that's facts too. And upward mobility is the modern way. In Webster's English Dictionary, fame is defined as, quote, the frenzy of renown, end quote. The frenzied, meaning people who are intoxicated by synthetic significance are complicit in this farce. 40 years ago, in his book, The Image, Daniel Boorstin argued that the graphic revolution in television had severed fame from greatness, which generally required a gestation period in which great deeds were performed. This severance hastened the decay of fame into mere notoriety, which is very plastic and very perishable. The doctrine of, quote, celebrity triumphalism is inherently inclusive. It proceeds from the assumption that everyone already loves the wealthy and the pseudo-famous, like the Kardashians, when no, we don't. The most pseudo, quote, celebrities, end quote, seems to have understood that their life is a constant conjuring trick. There is an incurable precariousness to their position as they try to live off derivative dignity from an anachronistic concept while cultivating a royalism of a democratic age. Celebrity. That assumption is what makes the celebrity circus so creepy. The pseudo-famous know that they owe their careers to the celebrity industry, know that their tabloid sensibility is well suited to a tabloid culture, know that the whole enterprise is built on bad faith. Still, the ratings continue to climb. We've always had that voyeuristic streak. Ours has always been a culture of gawkers. We went to see the bearded lady and the albino man when the circus came to town, but now we want to be a part of the circus. The bearded lady and the albino man rolled into one. And it may be just the right thing for the current moment in which the sleazy patter of tabloid culture has given way to a jittery onslaught of bearded midgets and their 6-foot-tall offspring, and guaranteed to appeal to the intellectually challenged, reason being highly optional. The abnormal is normal, and the deviancy will be back right after the commercial. Disturbing as I find the anachronism of the variety shows, I am even more distressed by their pervasive disingenuousness. The hosts and the guests alike omit facts, misuse words, and seem unwilling to admit the consequences of their own actions. I've never seen anything more grotesquely inadequate in a way of confession. As Maureen Dowd writes in the New York Times, quote, confession began in a small dark box with a screen separating priest and penitent. It is still in a small dark box, and there is still a screen, but this one is in everyone's living room. In the new medium of confession, people violate their own privacy, spilling their guts not for absolution, but for syndication, end quote. In fact, we are living in a world where conspicuousness passes for distinction, and the society column has become the role of fame. Andre Malraux believed that the third millennium must be the age of religion. I would say rather it must be the age in which we finally grow out of our need for religion. But to cease to believe in our gods is not the same thing as commencing to believe in nothing. To believe, we must take on the richness of a man, his existential density, immortality, eternity, and not the sectarian, simplistic, visceral millenarianism. Memory saves people from oblivion. The inherent danger, however, is that the prerequisite is lacking, curiosity deriving from respect for deeply alien cultures. That is not the main lesson of what is happening today, but it is a crucial lesson. The public debate increasingly is in the hands of the mentally retarded. This degeneration has played a large role in the paradigm shift of our society. What is that shift again? Man is to be told that he is a beast so that he might be controlled like one. The brainwashers of Tavistock adopted a bestial view that the human mind is simply a blank slate, which avoids pain and seeks pleasure. Quote, it was from this standpoint that the Tavistock Institute developed its peculiar techniques for creating a mass psychology, end quote. All right, we are still, bro, this chapter, it goes on for quite another little hot minute. So I'm going to end here, going to upload, going to go back, going to record. We might do this a couple times today because I actually got some sleep finally. I rested like all day yesterday, and I finally went to sleep probably at a decent hour last night, I would say. So I did wake up early this morning, but I had to go to the store just to pick up a couple of items that I needed, which is none of your freaking business. But I'm awake now, so I'm just going to keep on reading. So anyways, I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one.